You, my man. So there you go. Rock on.
Appreciate
Hey,
it.
everybody. Welcome to Toolbox Tuesday. Someone told me that you weren't going to make it here today because you were stuck in traffic, but you know what? I knew you were going to show up, and look at that. You came right on time. So today, we're going to kind of pivot away from payments. Today, we're going to talk to our friends over at ADP. Now, you might be thinking, I've heard ADP before. That's all they do is payroll. And this is the part where I say, au contraire. That's French for on the contrary. You're welcome. Look at that. You guys are learning French today too. But they do so much more than just payroll, and I'm happy to have my guest here today. I see one of them is on camera right now. Casey, let's do a mic check. Casey, hello to you, my friend.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Casey. Great to see you on
Perfect.
camera, my friend. Excellent. Thank you. Is Brandon on the call with us also? Brandon, are you here, my man?
I am here.
There he is. Look at that. We're two for two. You guys might actually have a third guest too. Is Catherine on the call with us as well? All right, we're going to go with two. Ladies and gentlemen, I have two guests from this is how you can tell we're doing it live. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have two of my friends from ADP joining us today. We've got Casey, we've got Brandon, and we're going to talk to you about what ADP does, why it brings the value, why all of you should be talking to your existing payments merchants about payroll, and we're going to give you some tips to get that conversation going. So, tell you what, Brandon, I'm actually going to kick it over to you first. All right. Brandon, ADP. Everybody thinks, yeah, just payroll, but it brings so much more. Brandon, what else can you guys bring to the table for any of our merchants?
Yeah, most people think we just do payroll, but in reality, we do a lot more than that. We do payroll, workers' compensation insurance, health insurance, timekeeping options so that they can track the hours for their employees, retirement options, so from hire to retire, research and development tax credits, depending on their industry, and then, of course, HR services such as creating handbooks, policies, job descriptions, and a lot of hiring tools help find employees.
So you do bring a lot of value. One of the reasons why I get excited about it, and I can see looking at the attendance list here, I've got some of my colleagues that I used to work with at a previous company, and just for everybody's knowledge, when I worked at previous company, I was in charge of the payroll product at the time, and I used to love talking to sales agents just like you and getting you excited about it because it's another arrow in your quiver. And it's an opportunity to differentiate yourself as far as cold calling, pulling the door, and having a different conversation. And we're going to cover that in a little bit. Brandon, let's kick it back over to you. Let's talk about the things that you're bringing to the table. So, obviously, payroll, but workers' comp. Now, one of the things that a lot of folks don't realize with workers' comp, and you can just kind of correct me if I don't get the language right on this, when a business is doing workers' comp, pretty much what they have to do is they kind of have to, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, they kind of have to pay up front in anticipation for what those worker comp costs are going to be, correct? Would you mind just kind of diving into that so all of our agents on this call can have an understanding of why it's important with what ADP does with workers' comp?
Yeah, so the traditional way that workers' comp works is you estimate what your annual payroll will be at the beginning of the year, and you know you pay upfront or quarterly of what the estimated cost would be, and at the end of the year, which all business owners are cringing when they hear this, is the audit. So the workers' comp audit is essentially like the price is right. Beginning of the year, you try to figure out what the estimated payroll will be at the end of the year. When the workers' comp company sends you an audit, they're basically going to see how close you were on that estimate that you made at the beginning of the year. And if you underestimated, then you're going to end up owing money at that audit. And if you overestimate at the beginning of the year, you're going to end up getting money back. So essentially, it's how well you are guessing what you're going to be paying out in wages throughout the full year. So with ADP, what makes us unique is that we integrate the workers' comp with payroll. So what that means for you is every time that you run payroll or your clients run payroll, we're sending that payroll data directly to the carrier. So they know exactly how much to bill your client in real time based on how much they actually paid out in wages. So at the end of the year, when they have their workers' comp audit, it should be pretty close, if not exactly at $0 that they're going to owe or get money back. So it's called a pay-by-pay workers' comp product through ADP. So $0 audit, and we make the audit very seamless. So better control your cash flow and just makes things a lot more, I guess, predictable.
And I want to capitalize on this just a little bit more, but I see that Catherine did join us on the call today. Catherine, I see you right on camera. Come off mute and just say hello to our audience, Catherine. Good to see you, my friend.
Hear me?
There we go. Absolutely
Perfect. Sorry, I
perfect.
was having internet issues, but I am here. It's a pleasure to join you all. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Catherine. I am our wholesale relationship manager for our firm. So I'm here to help answer any questions you might have. Looking forward to getting to know some of you, and appreciate you having me.
I'm glad that you could join us here today. Catherine said, if you have questions. So this is a great time to remind all of you. We're going to go through some of the content today. But as we're going through the content, you might be thinking to yourself, "Oh gosh, I mean, I've sold payroll before with another company," or you may be thinking, maybe I do want to add this arrow to my quiver. So today, we want to make sure that we do get your questions addressed. You have a couple of options. You can either type your questions directly into the chat, and we'll make sure that we get those in front of our guest panelists, or a little bit later on, we're going to pause and we're going to open it up to you. That's your opportunity to come off mute and get your questions over to our panelists. Catherine, great to see you on the call, my friend. Brandon, let's go back to you, my man. All right, the audit. So it's kind of like it's a little bit of a gamble when it comes to workers' comp, simply because much like when we do our income taxes, are we having enough taken out? Or are we having too much taken out, to which we get a refund? But that is most definitely a stressful piece for a lot of these business owners, just because there's never really been a lot of simplicity to it. So what I'm understanding, Brandon, is that ADP can help bring that level of simplicity, correct?
Correct. Yep. We make it no guesses. Everything is just done seamlessly through payroll. Set it and forget it.
And the reason why, for all of you, the reason why I want to drill down on this is today's the day where we're going to start giving you the talking points so that you can start having these conversations with your existing merchants, or you can have these conversations with your prospects. And what we want to do is just by sharing these talking points, we want to give you an opportunity to ask intelligent questions. So if you're having a conversation with a merchant and you're talking about things like, going through growth, how many more employees are you going to be adding to staff? If you don't mind, fill me in, Mr. or Mrs. Merchant. You must do workers' comp, correct? And if you do, what's that process been like for you? And this is your opportunity to just actively listen and find out what are some of those challenges that they're facing. And I'm willing to bet that ADP can help to address some of those challenges, especially when it comes to workers' comp. So always keep that in the back of your mind. Your merchant, it's a guessing game. You have to guess how much they're going to need to pay. They could either pay too little or they could pay too much. Regardless, it's still a stressful piece. Casey, let's kick it over to you because this is one piece that I get super excited about. Brandon, Brandon mentioned that one of the services that you offer is the ability to do timekeeping. Now, for the most part, sales agents, I already know what you're thinking. You're thinking a restaurant with a time clock on the wall, or you're thinking a retail opportunity, they got a time clock on the wall. But what I want to do is I want to expand your horizons a little bit. And I want you to start thinking, what does my customer base look like? Are you dealing with service-related industries? Are you dealing with companies such as long haul trucking or anything along those lines? So this is another opportunity to talk to all of you about timekeeping. Casey, let's come off mute. Can you hear me, my friend?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks,
There we
Scott.
go.
Absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit about our time and attendance. To Scott's point, obviously we think about, an hourly employee, and that automatic goes to, just clocking in and out on something like a system on the wall, or maybe if it's like a computer program, et cetera. But we have an array of options when it comes to how we can better support business owners when it comes to timekeeping. So just to even name a few, where, based off of industry, based off of, the nature of the business, we have an offering where essentially the employees can clock in and out on their phones. Or maybe they can clock in and out on a biometric screening, like a physical time clock where they can utilize a Face ID, or a thumbprint. So that way it's the right person that's clocking in. We also have a really incredible tool, especially when it comes to business owners that might be in a landscaping industry or construction, and they're needing to change the location of a job site week over week. They're able to have geofencing where they can build out a radius of, where once that employee gets to that location, they're able to clock in and out, and it allows them to clock in once they get there and out when they leave. They can't do it before they get there if they're on the freeway or grabbing a coffee or anything. It allows them to clock in and out once they get on site. So of course it just eliminates any hourly fraudulent enters. So it definitely better supports the business owner when it comes to labor costs there.
And this is one piece, and this is where, okay, sales agents, huddle in. I got to have a conversation with you guys. Come on in here. This is huge. Okay, this is huge. So what I don't want is I don't want all of you as sales professionals to limit yourselves. Don't put the blinders on and think I can only sell ADP and timekeeping to a restaurant. I can only sell ADP and timekeeping to a retail opportunity. Casey just knocked it out of the park. Some of the businesses, like give it some thought right now. Your landscapers, construction companies, those trucking companies. All right. Casey said that they have the ability to clock in and out on their phones. Casey, let's define the difference between geofencing and geo-tracking. Let's do geofencing first. What the heck is that, Casey? What is that?
Yeah, great question. So geofencing is where they're able to have it on a specific site. So say, for example, it's a construction business. They're needing to have a specific, if it's a commercial or residential building, they're needing to have it on site somewhere. They're able to put a radius or essentially a diameter around that house or that building. So essentially, once that employee gets on site, reaches that diameter, that's when they're able to clock in and out. It's grayed out if they're not within that range. So it really helps out the business owner.
Yeah, and one of the bigger things that I get excited about that when it comes to the geofencing piece, and everybody give this some thought. Um, think about the challenges that some of these business owners go through. Okay, we talked about workers' comp. That's a whole big mess that we're all done with that. We're not going to talk about that anymore. But for some of these businesses where they're hourly employees, and let's just say landscapers as an example, they send the employee off to a job site. The employee thinks, hi, you know what? I'm going to be clever and I'm going to clock in while I'm on the highway so I can make a little extra do-re-mi. Ha ha ha. Well, nice thing about the geofencing. Nice thing about the geofencing, as Casey just articulated, you can set up a radius and you can make it a super tight radius so that they can only clock in when they show up on the job site. Or, maybe if you want to give a little bit of leniency, maybe you want to give them the opportunity to clock in 5 minutes early if need be. Then you can just kind of open up that radius as they get closer to the job site. Then they have the ability to clock in. Uh, Time theft, it's huge, okay? And for the most part, these are the challenges that we can solve together by presenting ADP to all of your merchants. Okay, so we covered the geo fencing, but come on, Casey, my gosh, you just keep throwing that geo term all over the place. You also said geo tracking. Casey, what the heck is that? Come on, what is that?
Great question. So yes, obviously there's geofencing, but then in addition to that, we do have the geo tracking. So I know, Scott, you mentioned trucking, some transportation companies, things of that nature. Obviously, not all of them have a flat salary, and the majority of those employees are going to be hourly. So the geo tracking just allows for business owners to get accurate time for any of their employees that are, traveling, driving trucks, long distances, et cetera. So it's able to track all the hours that way versus just like the standard clock in and out just for an 8-hour shift. Obviously, they're driving, multiple hours and various distances. So geo tracking is going to help out with that.
And friends, just let the stuff that we're sharing with you resonate with you and start thinking about how you can approach these conversations when you're talking to your merchants. As far as the geo tracking goes, one of the things that I think is the biggest benefit with it is making sure that the employee is where they say they are. I gave them an assignment. I told them to drive to this job site. But in real time, I can find out, well, are they driving to the job site or did they take that right turn towards the golf course? Where the heck is this guy? So kind of gives the ability to find out where the employees truly are. And friends, like I said, think outside the box because this entire session, we're going to give you the talking points so that you can start those conversations and add another tool to your toolbox. Hopefully, look at that. We're hoping you can get a twofer, get a merchant signed up for payments and payroll or payments and ADP because they do much more than payroll. And the nice thing about that, that's going to add to your retention much later down the road. And I promise you we'll cover that. Let's keep talking about some of these offerings that you throw out there. Whether it's Brandon or Casey or Catherine, you guys can do rock, paper, scissors to figure out who's going to talk next. I really don't care. Health insurance. Okay. I mean, it's pretty much we automatically assume that it's standard with any job that you sign up for. However, that's not always the case. What are some of the conversations that our agents should be having when it comes to those benefits, including health insurance? Let me throw it out there to my guest panelists. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, for health insurance, it's the number one sought after benefit that employees are looking for when finding a new employer. So I think the statistic is 81% of employees that are looking for new jobs are looking for an opportunity that provides benefits. So when you are an employer and you don't offer benefits, it's a lot harder to find those employees and retain those employees. So it's an attraction and retainment tool for small businesses that are looking to have great quality candidates.
All right, Brandon, since you chimed in, we're going to do a pop quiz on you, and I hope you're ready. Are you ready? You ready? You
I'm
ready,
ready.
Brandon? Brandon, which one
I'm
costs
ready.
more? All right, here we go. Which one costs more? Does it cost more to retain an employee, or does it cost more to hire a new employee? What do you think, Brandon?
Costs more to hire a new employee. It's very expensive to find new employees, and a lot of times it's the objection that we get is that they don't have enough money to offer benefits. But what they don't realize is that when they don't offer benefits, the cost and the time that it takes to find employees definitely outweighs the cost of what it would be to, offer benefits.
You did good for a very quick pop quiz. Nicely done, my man. Excellent.
Thanks.
So yeah, these are part of the conversations that I want all of you to think about. When you're talking to that merchant and you're talking about if they're going through growth, it's an opportunity to find out if they are currently offering benefits. And if they're not offering benefits, it's an opportunity to ask them why. If you don't mind, what is the perception? Is it because you think it's expensive? Do you think that it's going to be too cumbersome? Dig into those pain points and know that there are more than enough offerings here under the ADP umbrella so that you can get those deals signed up. A couple more pieces that you shared at the very beginning, Brandon. And like I said, whoever comes off mute and wants to talk about it, absolutely fine, whether it's Brandon, Casey, or Catherine. You guys also do retirement also, which kind of ties into like that health insurance benefit type package. Do you think a lot of business owners are kind of missing the boat by not offering retirement? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I'll take this one, guys. I believe it's something that's huge that business owners aren't taking advantage of, especially because there are a lot of tax benefits for the business owner for offering a retirement plan, specifically the Secure Act. So a lot of you may not know what the Secure Act is. It was something that was put in place back in 2023 and then revised in 2024. Secure Act is essentially where a business that offers a retirement plan for the first time, they get a tax credit for one, the cost of the retirement plan for the first, I believe it's 3 or 5 years. And then they also get a tax credit for up to $1,000 per employee for the amount that they're matching that employee as well. So if a business owner matches, say, $1,000 of what the employee contributes, they get dollar for dollar back at the end of the year when they do their taxes, $1,000 per employee that they matched. So
And
essentially, it's free.
essentially, it is free, and it's part of the education to share with some of these business owners. They might not even be aware that they have an opportunity to take advantage of free money that is readily available to them. So we got the retirement. We talked about the health benefits, and we talked about the fact that we do the workers' comp. This is another piece that I get really excited about too, the HR services. Brandon, I believe it was you that kind of mentioned it towards the very beginning as far as HR services, updating the handbook. What I want to do, just very briefly, and then I'm going to kick it back over to my panelists, is one of the reasons why I think it's beneficial to have conversations with business owners about HR services is one simple word. The word is COVID. Okay. Everybody stop and think. I realized it was 5 years ago, but stop and think about what was happening across the landscape. A lot of businesses had to pivot very quickly because everything got shut down quickly. Okay. So what wound up happening with a lot of these business owners? They had to create policies on the fly. If you're going to come into work, you have to wear a mask. If you're going to come into work, you have to make sure that you wash your hands every single time you do something. If you feel as if you have a cough or a cold or you're exhibiting any symptoms, we ask that you please stay home. Now, a lot of this just seems like common sense, and it just kind of seems like talking points. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because back in 2020, a lot of business owners wound up taking on a lot of liability because they weren't documenting this stuff. It doesn't take much to make a quick policy change. Get it into writing so you make sure that you're covering your bases. Because heaven forbid, if you're just doing it verbally, it could come back to haunt you. You get a disgruntled employee, well, guess what? They might take you to court, and there's a remote possibility that you might lose just because you didn't go through the process of creating a policy to make sure that you're covering yourself and your business. So let's jump back into this again. As far as these HR services goes, I'm a huge believer that a handbook definitely needs to be created. It needs to be updated in real time. But what else is tied into that offering, Brandon? Or Catherine or Casey, whoever feels like talking, just come off mute.
Yeah, I can take this one.
Go ahead.
So, I can touch a little bit on some of the HR services, but to piggyback on what you were saying, Scott, around the employee handbook, and to your point, reflecting back on 2020 and all of the different changes within legislation, all the uncertainty, things of that nature. Obviously, still, to this day, there's always going to be legislative changes, policy changes, et cetera. So it's really important to have something, if it's physical or at least virtual, that they can have that's in writing for some of the policies and procedures that they offer or that they have in place. So when it comes to our employee handbook, we do it a little bit differently. We have something called an employee handbook wizard. And because we understand that the employee handbook is like a living, breathing document. It's something that is always ever changing. It's not something that's set in stone. So it's something that is really customizable to help build and then to continue to build off of it, add, make changes, et cetera, in the future. It's something like on average, business owners can build their employee handbook in less than 10 minutes with ADP, just because it builds out everything that's necessary to make sure that their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed. And it's also put through just by being under ADP. Our employment lawyers are also ensuring that all of the employee handbooks are accurate and up to date as well. So it also gives the business owners that peace of mind. They don't need to worry about that the policies and procedures aren't up to date. They don't need to Google anything. It's all in there and updated for them. And it allows the employee, when they're going through onboarding, to sign off on the policies and procedures, and it timestamps it for the employer as well. So it shows that XYZ employee was able to sign off on the employee handbook and all the policies and procedures on this day at this time. So it just makes it really streamlined and accurate for the employer.
Casey, since you took the lead on this one, let me ask the question because obviously I need to learn a little bit more about ADP. I know I'm recording this. Shame on me, people. You can call me out. It's quite okay. But it's safe to assume that within that HR resource, there has got to be some templates in there to get them started, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So really with the HR services that we offer, I like to think of it as a much more of a proactive solution than a reactive solution. So
There we go.
if you think about anything from the employee life cycle all the way from hiring to firing or retiring, they're going to have the tools necessary within the platform at their disposal. So there is a lot of different templates and toolkits for them templates that help out with job descriptions, so that way they can post on job sites through there. There's toolkits for record keeping or performance management. Really anything that you can imagine, all the way through the employee life cycle, that allows the business owner to access it pretty quickly and be able to have it for their employees. And it's nice because so many business owners, I mean, they always say they wear so many hats. They're like, I'm the business owner,
Yeah.
I'm also the HR person. So, if they're wanting to take the lead on that, they have all of the different resources to ensure that they're buttoned up and compliant. But then they're also focusing on what they love to do, which is running their business.
Ooh, Casey, you're going to stay on camera because we got a lot to unpack here, and I want to make sure you're such a good sport. I want to make sure that we don't just gloss over something really important that you said. I heard job postings and I heard job descriptions too, correct?
Yes, yes.
All right, Casey, I'm going to pick your professional ADP brain here. So let's talk about this. For in agents, this is for conversations that you can have with your merchants, okay? Let's talk about those job postings, but specifically, let's talk about the job descriptions. You're telling me that ADP has a whole bunch of different job descriptions to mirror the environment, whether it's business professional, whether it's a service related industry, or even if it's hospitality. You got all the bases covered on that, correct?
Absolutely. So it's all streamlined within the platform where they're able to see all the different industries and different roles within those industries as well. They can create their own, like if that role doesn't populate under that specific industry, they can
There
create
we
their
go.
own and build off of it. But it allows them to have the specific points that are necessary that could be under that type of role and within that industry. So if it's say it's, where they're needing to lift over 15 pounds, that needs to be laid out in the job description. It's really important. So, it'll help build their job descriptions, and then they're able to customize it as well.
To you, the audience, this is yet another piece that we're sharing with you to give thought to the conversations that you're going to have with some of these businesses. Are you going through growth? You are. Okay. How many employees do you anticipate you need to hire? Okay. How much time on average, Mr. or Mrs. Merchant, do you spend creating a job description, posting that job, getting the candidates to come in? Let them fill in the blanks and listen for cues because I can tell you that it's probably very time consuming for them. What they're probably doing, some of these folks that may not have this resource, is they just go to Google. Give me a job description for this. Okay, not bad, but does it cover all the bases? Does it have those, does Google provide those key bullets that really should be in a job description, which is where ADP is bringing the value in here. So once again, you're going to hear some of these gold nuggets that we're going to be dropping throughout this conversation today, but I am going to pause on occasion to make sure that we're giving all of you the talking points so that you can start to have these conversations with each and every single one of your merchants. Another piece that you said, Casey, a lot of these business owners, they wear a lot of hats. My gosh, I got to tell you that when I started in the fintech industry 12 years ago, and when I used to talk to restaurant owners, man, oh man, one day they would wake up, go into work. Today they're the fry cook because somebody quit. And today they're the ones that are running payroll. And tomorrow they're going to be up on the roof because there's a leak or whatever the case may be. And the benefit and the value that we're bringing to the table is, look, we realize you have more than enough on your plate. Let us provide you with a one-stop shopping resource so that you don't have to overthink a job description, so that you don't have to overthink your workers' comp. All right. We're going to dive in just a little bit as far as qualifying an account, questions you should be asking, and uncovering some of those pain points. Let's pause and we're going to open up to you, the audience. This is your opportunity to either put your questions into the chat, and we'll read them out loud, or if you would like, you can just come off mute. Let's hear from you. Come off mute if you have any questions for our panelists.
I can actually address one of the questions
Go
that
ahead,
was in
please.
the chat for those if people are
Yes.
mobile and can't see it. I think
Thank you,
I
Catherine.
don't
Yes.
yeah, I don't want this to be lost because this is a really good point that Mary made, where she asked, is there a workers' comp calculator quote tool? Is it based upon per employee? And is the payment pulled all at once or payments offered? The reason I ask is because I recently added workman's comp and the entire annual amount was pulled all at once. I was not offered a payment option.
Ooh,
So the reason this is
wow.
super important, guys, is because this is a real life example with one of our own here that clients deal with on a daily, weekly basis, right? With workers' comp, the way that it typically works is you have an upfront premium that the client has to pay when they sign on for workers' comp or at the beginning of the year. And it's based off of an estimated number of hours that are worked by your employees. At the end of the year, they do an audit, and sometimes a large chunk of money is owed, or there's sometimes a large chunk of money is given back. So, to Mary's point, right, especially for clients that don't have consistent cash flow, maybe they're just getting started, those amounts can be a lot for them to have to pay out without sometimes even knowing or being aware that that's a fee they're going to be hit with. So the reason that clients love our workers' comp product is because we actually link the product directly to the payroll. It comes out weekly or biweekly, whatever their pay period is, based off of the real time hours that are worked by the actual employees. So they're getting almost an exact amount, right? And by the end of the year, when it comes time for the audit, it mitigates that entire process. So there may be times that they owe a little bit or they get a little bit back. But as far as having a large lump sum taken out, that's truly why that's such a valuable product. And as far as at least for wholesale, it's probably our most added beyond payroll product because almost all clients need workers' comp regardless, and it makes it so easy for them. And all you have to do is let us know that they need workers' comp attached, and we'll make that happen. So that was a really amazing point, Mary. I hope that answered your question, but that's a perfect example where it's someone sitting in this room with us that has to deal with that. So appreciate the question. And if anyone else has questions, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So feel free to throw anything that you'd like in there and we can bring it up as we go.
And Catherine, I'm going to keep the focus on you for just a little nanosecond, so don't panic
Okay.
on me. When you talk about how the workers' comp is integrated with the payroll, and right now I'm making an assumption, but I want you to clarify so this way, because I'm sure somebody else has the question, but they're just too afraid to ask. So they're like, "Hey, Scott, why don't you ask?" So here we go. So Catherine, what I'm assuming with workers' comp being integrated with the payroll, am I understanding correctly that the way that it works, that if a business adds to staff, the system is picking it up to which is doing the correct calculation. Is that a good assumption?
So whenever you add employees, we're going to pull the workers' comp amount, however frequently they process the payroll, based off of the employees that are actually processing on that payroll, the hours that they're working. So they can add employees, terminate employees, and we'll still be able to handle all of that for them.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna pause one more time. Everybody, this is for your benefit. And my hope all of you will add this tool to your toolbox because I'm going to tell you right now, and we're going to jump into this in just a little bit. This is a great retention tool. I'm assuring all of you, payments, payroll, one merchant, it's going to be really, really hard for them to leave you, especially given the fact you've got them signed up for two services, all courtesy of Pay Compass. So let's open it back up to the audience. Any questions? Love to hear from you guys. All right. Catherine, Casey, and Brandon, when they're silent, it means we're killing it. It means we are
Hmm.
dropping so much knowledge on them that they're like, oh my gosh, I have no questions. You guys are checking all the boxes. So don't worry when they go quiet. It's quite okay. Hey Brandon, I just saw you pop up on camera, my man. You ready to have a conversation with me, dude? You ready, Brandon?
I'm
Yeah,
ready
you
for it.
you
Let's
you're
do it.
ready.
You have
All
me?
right. Yeah, I'm talking to you, of course. Brandon. Brandon. Are your competitors out there pulling doors every single day saying, "Hi, I'm such and such from big famous payroll company, and I'm here to talk to you about payroll"? Probably not, right? Probably not.
No.
No. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. This is the benefit of our agents adding this to their portfolio, because let's face it, merchant services, a little bit of a commodity. There's a lot of competition out there. You agents know that for a fact. You guys are up against, the globals that buy the world page. We won't talk about that. But you guys are up against stiff competition. You guys are up against other merchant services agents in your own backyard, and that's difficult. But you pop into one of your merchants and you flip that conversation, or you're prospecting and you flip that conversation. Rather than be a commodity, now you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself. So, Brandon, as far as our agents taking the lead and opening up a conversation about payroll, what are some of those pain points that they should be aware of, minus the ones that we've already mentioned a little bit previously? What do you think, Brandon?
I'd say one question would be like service. Like, where do you go when you
Service.
have questions, issues? Like who do you lean on for that? How much time does it take you to run payroll? How many things do you have streamlined with your payroll so you're not going to 5 different places to get things solved, such as like the workers' comp integration? So at the end of the day, for a business owner, it's time. So how much time is it taking you to do all these things? And how much easier would it be if all these things were streamlined? I think that would be probably the main thing I would bring up.
Service is definitely a huge piece. And this is the part where I'm going to take a look at the attendance list because I know I've got some of my friends in Phoenix that are listening in. Bree Linder, if you can come off mute very quickly, I would love to hear your voice, Bree.
Scott, how you doing?
You're doing excellent, Bree. Good to see you on the call. Brandon, Brandon said service. Bree, are we handling the service? How does that work, Bree?
Yes, most definitely. So whenever an agent has a potential merchant interested in payroll, first step would be just to reach out to sales@paycompass.com. That will be me. I am the one that submits all of the payroll applications, works with the agent constantly to get that payroll merchant approved. Then once that merchant is approved through ADP, it then shoots over to our support team. Usually it is Josh. Josh is the one, he is the one that handles all of the service. So any agents and merchants needing support with their payroll merchant, just reach out to us, but it's mainly going to be our support team helping you guys out with that.
Bree, stay on the call here real quick. Bree, are you telling me that merchants aren't calling Catherine and Casey and Brandon? What?
No, sir, that's all us.
Is it?
Yeah, of
And the reason I wanted to bring that up, Bree, you're a good sport. Thank you, my friend. And the reason I'm bringing this up,
course.
everybody, is because what I want to do is I want to take away the myth or the perception that if you sign a merchant up for ADP, oh my gosh, well now I got to give them a whole brand new 1-800 number. Now I got to give them a whole brand new email address. Well, guess what? What you're doing is you're presenting a payroll offering that's under the Pay Compass umbrella. So think about it. All right. You got a merchant signed up for payments, you got a merchant signed up for payroll, one phone number to call, one email to send. It's going to come directly to us, and we're going to be that first line of defense so that we can get those questions answered for all those merchants. All right. So for you sales professionals, when you're out there every single day pulling doors, if you are getting sick and tired of hearing, how many of you people walk through my door every single day? I'm so sick and tired of you guys. Good gosh, I get 5 or 10 of you guys per day. I can tell you right now, there's a really good possibility that a merchant's not going to go, oh, I don't really have payroll people walking in here. Catch them off guard. Just let them know that you're more than just payments. One way that you can kind of dig into this and get that conversation started is just find out if they're going through growth. If they are going through growth, keep it in the back of your mind. All right, well, we have those HR services, job descriptions, job postings. We could take care of the growth. So some of the pain points, creating those job descriptions and getting them out there, we got it covered. Adding employees to payroll, having seen the back end of the portal itself, there's a lot of ease of use to it. Okay. So we can help to simplify that. Workers' comp, we covered that several times during this call today. That is definitely a piece that we can address as well. Um, but the biggest piece that I want all of you to think about is that retention piece. All right. That's huge. And I'm just gonna just base this on past experience when I used to take the lead on payroll and I used to help folks just like you to close two deals in one fell swoop. Get them for payments, get it from payroll. And like I said, it makes it difficult for them to want to leave because you're pretty much taking care of the most basic needs that they do have. All right. Um, Here's something that was brought up to me, and I don't remember which one of my guest panelists brought this up. Uh, think of ADP as a solution that is scalable to any business, being a scalable solution. Which one of my panelists wants to take the lead on that? And what are we talking about here with being scalable?
I can take it. Um, so yeah, we're ADP. Obviously, Brandon and myself, we work within like the small business side of things. Business owners that could just be a one employee, needing to take a salary, or all the way up to 50 employees. So and even beyond that, but really when we talk to a business owner, we also want to, Scott, you've been saying it a lot today, discuss with them what their growth plans are. Are they wanting to bring on employees? If they are, how many? If they, if it's 10, by when? Is it by the end of the year? Is it, what does it look like? So we don't really have like a one size fits all. We really want to make sure that we can provide them with the solutions that they need today, and we'll scale and grow with them. So if it's from day one with ADP or through the entirety of their, the business's lifetime, we want to make sure that we can scale and grow with them, and keep that pace and provide them with the right solutions that they need at that time.
Part of the conversations that all of you can have with the merchants. Tax liability. How did we not talk about tax liability? That's huge. What happens to what? Okay, so panelists, someone's going to take the lead on this. Tax liability. What's happening with businesses if they're not managing that correctly? Who wants to take the lead on that one?
Yeah, I can take that one.
There we go, Brandon. Thank
So
you.
if a business is with a company that doesn't take on full tax liability, essentially if there's an error that's done with that payroll company, it falls on the business and not on the payroll company. So ADP is one of the few that does take on full tax liability. So if there ever is like a tax reporting issue or error, it doesn't fall on the business, it falls on us. So when you're with a payroll company, you want to make sure it's a company that does take on that liability so that the business owner is never at the end of the day, getting in trouble for something that was out of their hands by trusting a company. So always want to make sure you go with a reputable company.
So just to be clear, if on the off chance employee information, whether it's, for the most part, the business owner, they're entering a new employee into the system, they make a keying error, they type in the wrong information, and all of a sudden the IRS comes knock, knock, knock. Doesn't fall on the merchant. This is where ADP will provide the value and assist. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, ADP would help with the amendments to make sure that everything, can get, I guess, fixed for that client. So we do amendments all the time when something is keyed in incorrectly or something is done incorrectly. So we're always able to help with amendments. Um, so yeah, mistakes do happen, but ADP is here to make sure that we can assist with getting things corrected.
I think that is such a huge piece. Just based upon my previous experience, not to be disparaging, but if somebody made an error and the IRS came knocking, unfortunately, the story we told was, well, that sucks. Sorry. But it's good to know that you guys will at least have their back on that. What I want to do, just because I want
Yeah,
to be
for sure.
mindful of the time that we have left here, Sales agents, I want to kick it back over to you guys because I want to start engaging in conversation with all of you, thinking about how should we be approaching merchants? What are some of the conversations that we should be having? All right. I got a couple of my own ideas, but sales, I'd love to hear from you as well. The conversations, ask them point blank, what does that employee onboarding experience look like? How much of your time and energy is spent bringing on new employees? When you are bringing on new employees, if you could save time, how much time would you like to save? 10%, 20%, 50%? What's the hardest part with that onboarding process? Another question that you can ask, not even so much a question as much as it's a statement, saying to a merchant, do me a favor. I want to have a better understanding of what you're going through. Walk me through the entire payroll process from start to finish. When does it start? When do you start calculating hours? When do you get submit? Do you ever have to make any adjustments? Walk me through that process. As they're walking you through the process, find opportunities to ask them, do things ever go wrong during this process? You would be surprised to find out that some of some of our payroll competitors have a little bit of a cumbersome product. Meaning it's not the easiest thing in the world to log into. It's not the easiest way to kind of track everything. So ask them, what does that process look like? Um, Another one that we could throw out there too, because we alluded to this when we were talking about the HR services. Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, when you make changes, new policies, new rules, whatever the case is, how do you communicate that to your employees? I'm willing to bet that a lot of small business owners say, well, we just put it in an email and we throw it out there to everybody. Well, that's not really a policy, that's a communication. And as I mentioned previously, some of the stuff can actually come back to haunt them later on. And it's not even so much that they're doing anything illegal or wrong, but the way that they're presenting information to their employees is not like official. It's not like it's a document that's living, breathing, and where we can make amendments to it. It was just a quick communication that was thrown out there. Even just throwing one word into that communication could wind up causing a lot of liability. It could actually come back to haunt that merchant if they don't frame it correctly, which is why we make the recommendation. It sounds to me like you need the HR services. Let me throw this back over to the panelists very quickly. So when we talk about ADP and we're setting them up with benefits and payroll, but HR services, how do we overcome the objection if the business owner says, well, I've already got an HR person? How do we overcome that objection? Whoever wants to take that one.
One thing that you could bring up is how often is your HR person updating your handbook whenever there's a federal or state change? Um, is your HR person making sure everyone signs off on the employee handbooks whenever there is a change? What is that HR person doing when they're onboarding a person? Like, what does that process look like? Is that HR person also doing the benefits enrollment? How many hats is that HR person wearing? So we're not trying to replace the HR person. We're trying to give them tools so that their lives easier and the employee experience is a lot more smooth and all integrated with payroll.
Yeah, those are all good. Let me throw this one at you, Brandon. How often does your HR person research what's happening across the landscape? Because it's safe to assume, you're going to educate me here, that with ADP, you guys are probably providing the most up-to-date information, whether it's federal or state, I'm assuming, correct?
Anytime there's a change, we're changing the handbook so that they're compliant. So yes, anytime there's a change, we're making sure we're the first ones to make sure that we're updating and making sure that everyone's compliant with that change.
Once again, friends, it's all about a pain point. It's about knowing that the merchant does wear a lot of hats. Today they're the fry cook and blah, 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 blah. They don't have time. Your merchants do not have time to sit and research to see if there were changes in federal law, state law. So what you're doing is you're offering them an extension. You're offering them the opportunity to say, hey, look, I know you're busy. You don't have time to stay on top of, all the legislation and the laws that are changing. Let me give you a resource so that you can always stay in the know. All right, just food for thought. Catherine, I see we have some more questions that popped into the chat. Do you want to read those out loud just in case we do have some friends that are driving today?
100%. I was busy typing, but I can
I stopped you
respond
from
to that in the
typing.
chat
Go ahead.
after. That's totally fine. So one of the questions is, what if the merchant pushes back with I'm already using my CPA,
Oh,
accountant, or bookkeeper? Which is a great question because
yeah.
typically this is one of the toughest objections that we handle. I would say Casey, Brandon would probably agree with me on that. Just because the CPA or accountant is typically one of the most trusted business advisors to the client. So in those cases, number one, I would find out who is the CPA or accountant processing through. We have over 10,000 CPA wholesalers across the country. So it's possible that if you have that conversation, they're already using ADP. For those that are not, I would find out number one, who are they using? Have they had any issues with processing payroll? If those issues did arise, was the CPA able to get that handled for them in an appropriate amount of time? And really pick at the pain points there because depending on the CPA, maybe with a different company, and really dissect from there. I can kick it over to Casey and Brandon too to see if you have any thoughts on that before we move on to the next question as well.
Yeah, I think you covered all of it, Catherine. I think that it definitely is a tougher objection that we run into, but it's definitely not something we shy away from because the majority of, to Catherine's point, we partner with so many accountants and bookkeepers. So you can always let them know, hey, well, what is that account utilizing, or asking that if it's a bookkeeper, et cetera. But just know, similar to what Brandon was saying in regard to the HR professional, we're not looking to replace that relationship. We're really looking to, we don't want to compete, we want to complement that. So that's, similar to the HR specialist, same with the CPA, the accountant, the bookkeeper. We're going to really make sure that we can partner with them and make it even potentially easier for the accountant as well.
All right. I've got one that ties in with the benefit that all of you offer. Okay. The objection. My Aunt Agnes does my payroll, or I've got a CPA that, does my taxes for me. I let them do my payroll. Let's think back, everybody, to what was mentioned previously. If there's a keying error, something was wrong, entered into the system, ADP will take on the full liability to get it corrected. So when all of you are presented with the objection, I have a CPA that does it. I have a bookkeeper that does it. Agents, your first response is, well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you have somebody. But I have to ask you, if something were to go wrong, let's say there was a keying error, will your CPA take on the liability? Will they pay out of pocket to take care of the mistake that they made? You have to put the benefit of the doubt back on the merchant in these instances. And don't be afraid to ask those questions because ultimately what you're doing is you're going in there as an advocate on behalf of their business. And sometimes these are things that business owners do not think about because they're so busy doing everything else with every hat that they wear. So the objection, my CPA, my accountant, my Aunt Agnes, my cousin's brother does it for me. They do my payroll. Just say, look, I'm just looking out for your best interest, and I'm not trying to be nosy. But I do have to ask, if something were to go wrong, where the IRS were to come knocking on your door, would that person that's doing your payroll take on the liability and help bail you out? Or are they just doing your payroll? Dig in with those questions, friends. Don't be afraid. If nothing else, you're going to show the value on that. Catherine, was there another question that was thrown in the chat?
There was. Mary's killing it with the questions over here.
Mary, I've known
Mary's
Mary for
really
years. Of course she is. She's the
love it. Yeah.
best. She's
This
the
is my
best.
favorite type of engagement. So, this is also a great question. So, she said, isn't there certain peak times of the year that for people to start asking as well? So, yes, the answer is yes. So, across the board, January is the absolute easiest time for a client to start payroll new with us, and really with any payroll provider. So, January 1st, everything resets for our clients, and there's no prior payroll balances. So we can bring them over with just basic business information, bank account, tax IDs, and employee information. We don't need all the prior payroll balances or anything like that. So January is easily our busiest time of year. We do recommend that you start getting those clients on deck, even starting as early as October, to start having those conversations if they're looking for a clean break in January. We do have a lot of clients, Casey and Brandon can attest, that'll say, listen, like, talk to me down the line, talk to me in November, talk to me in December. And that's the reason, right? Because that's if they're looking at new providers, that's when they want to do it. So highly recommend you get that ball rolling late fall before the holidays. The
Yes.
other really easy time for them to switch is at a quarter break, because
Yes.
at a quarter break, all we need is a quarter to date or year to date report with the payroll balances, as opposed to having to grab payroll by payroll reports, proof of deposits, and all of those things. Still totally doable, but when we're thinking about peak times, we're looking at quarter breaks and then, of course, year end going into January. Great question.
That is a fantastic question. Yeah, just to your point, Catherine, yes, we used to affectionately refer to it as payroll season. If the pumpkins come out, then you talk payroll. Because the reason being, like right when and Catherine is spot on with this, September, October is when a lot of businesses sit down and they start planning for the following year. One of the conversations that I can guarantee you most of them have is, should we make a change with our payroll? And there's a myriad of reasons. It could be the customer service is not the best. It could be the fact that it's too expensive. It could be that the portal that they currently use is not very user friendly. Wide myriad of reasons why people start to consider that in September, October. Now, I realize we're in the month of April, so I don't want you guys waiting until September, October. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, start having the conversations now. To Catherine's point, when there's a break between quarters, which is going to be coming up fairly quickly, because think about it, towards the end of June, July starts a brand new quarter. It's a great time to start having those conversations. Catherine, were there any other questions that were in the chat, my friend?
No, there are no more questions in the chat, but I would add to that too, just as a recommendation, don't wait till November, because as soon as you get to November, everyone's in holiday mode. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's is coming, and then before you know it, you're into January, and then they don't want to switch sometimes. So, highly recommend September, October. Scott, to your point, when the pumpkins come out, it's the perfect
Mm-hmm.
time. Pumpkin spice
Yep.
lattes, think of payroll.
Yep. Or another way to phrase it, when your kids are back in school, you better start talking payroll. But as always, you can start having the conversation now. And like I said, give it thought. May is right around the corner, friends. It's coming up next week. And like I said, if you got a merchant that's in the market to switch between quarters, look at that. You're having the conversations now, you're dropping the education, and just say to them, you know what, this sounds like this would be a great fit for your business. I think it would make the most sense to have you up and running with us going into Q3. However, if you do want to come on board sooner rather than later, we're not going to say no. I think I did see another question that popped up. Catherine, you want to grab that one, or did you already grab it? Oh, certain time of year. We already got that one. Excellent.
Yep, and then says this works pretty well. Think of us like your CPA or bookkeeper's best friend. We take care of the payroll, tax filings, and compliance heavy lifting so they can focus on helping your business in other ways like strategic tax planning, forecasting, cash flow management, and growing your bottom line. Literally love that, Brad.
Brad is a seasoned pro in this industry. And ladies and gentlemen, he just did a mic drop on you. Boom shakalaka. Look at that. Brad Tabor, thank you for sharing that, my man. Always good to hear from you. Friends, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to get ready to wrap up. But I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to make sure that we do get your questions answered. So I'm going to ask one more time, do you, my audience, have any other questions while we've got our three panelists on the call? Once, going twice. All right, I'm going to safely assume there are no questions. However, all of you, if you do have questions, sales@paycompass.com. Drop us an email. Let us know what you need. Let's get you taken care of. Let's get you out there in the streets today and promoting ADP, making it a little bit stickier by adding ADP to your existing merchant services. Ladies and gentlemen, before we break, we got to give some love. Everybody, if you want to come on camera and do some hearts, I don't care what you do, but let's give some love to Catherine, Brandon, and Casey. To the three of you, thank you so much for making the time today. We appreciate the fact that you did join us. So, domo arigato. Thank you to the three of you for joining. Much appreciated.
Thank you all for
And
having
Thank you,
us.
everyone. Thanks for having us.
thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much.
And as we wrap up, let me turn the recording off here.